Welcome Park Facebook group to the tip of the week. This week we have one of the friendly voices from tech support, Josh Ockman, and we're going to go through leveling your Sawjet table. Josh, why would you want to level your Sawjet table, and what would you see if you're getting out of level?
Well, most important reason would be miter cuts. You want to keep that level. If everything else is dialed in correctly, blade, all that, your Z offset and everything, and you're finding that miter cuts are still coming out incorrectly, it's very possible your table could be unlevel. Keeping them slats is a good thing for miter cuts and all cuts, keeping all cuts accurate.
So Josh, it's really, the telltale sign is in your miters when you're going to really notice it first, but you might notice it in other cuts. But having a nice clean miter, we want to keep this thing dialed in and that table real flat. There's going to be a couple things we go through with this. Josh, why don't I kick it over to you? It looks like we're starting with a dial indicator.
So I do have the dial indicator all set up on the machine, zeroed out and everything. What you want to do is, I would start with zeroing out on the top of the actual slat. After you get the top of the slat zeroed out and your top of your slats are all good, then when you're going to go back and test the top of the rubber slats there, and those can be adjusted by these bolts, your full slat will be adjusted by these four here. So we're going to zero out here. Pay attention to the small dial on where you start, because one revolution around with the big dial is one number on the small dial, which is 1/8 of an inch. So we want to make sure you're not over 1/8 inch out and you think you're at zero. Once you have that zeroed out, I'm going to zero my user zero here. So you can see we have the user zero button. These are the coordinates here. And we're going to just zero them out. So now we can raise our Z axis up. And I'm going to use the incremental jog button here. I already know it's 85 3/4 inch is where we want to move down to. That will give us our coordinate where we already pulled a slat for this video to reference off of.
Hey Josh, if you were leveling a table, how many in each line would you do? About how far
I would do,
apart?
if you're doing a full table level, every 1.5 to 2 feet, I would do, Joe.
Perfect. And we just removed one slat. That's why we went 80 some inches.
Correct. So now I'm just going to turn my feet rate down a little bit here and watch my user zero. And we are just going to slowly drive down until we zero out our Z again. And you might be doing some jumping back and forth right at zero there, but we got it to zero. So now we want to go over, check our dial indicator, and you can see we're about 12 thousandths off. We're still on the 1 on the small dial, and we're at about a -11 or 12 there.
So Josh, before you would start adjusting things, would you maybe pick up in Z, or you don't want to move the dial indicator, but just make sure you're not on a burr or some sludge or whatnot. Although you're low, I guess that low is an indicator that you wouldn't have anything in there. But
yes, Joe, that is actually a very good point. You want to make sure on your slat, if that's where you're measuring, or if you're going off of your tabletop, your rubber, backer board, whatever you have there, you do want to make sure that you are on a nice smooth surface. And before I would do any adjustments, I would run fully around the table to make sure see what you need to do, the most movement you need to do, if it's up or down. Otherwise, you will be doing a back and forth motion here.
Right. So realistically, you would want to determine and make sure there's not like a water jet scar there that's causing you to be 12 low, or a burr if you were 12 high, something like that.
Correct, yes. Our tolerance is, Park Industries tolerance is 64 thousandths of an inch there. The closer, the more accurate you are to zero, though, the better luck you'll have, especially with miter cuts and straight cuts being accurate.
As we're down here, Josh, I noticed our table, our rubber strips are in pretty rough condition. The slat we pulled out was actually already broken down there, sliced in half and whatnot. One thing we highly recommend is having slats, having rubber strips at your location. They're kind of big, they're awkward, they're heavy. They're really expensive if you decided today I need to have some new ones tomorrow. You might spend more on shipping than you would the actual parts. So these things make sense to have at your location. You don't have to do all the strips every time. You might just do the sections that are getting real beat up, so on and so forth. But having them there will make your life a lot easier.
Yeah, Joe, that's making sure that those are replaced frequently when needed. These are getting in really rough shape. What you can see here, what happens when you get loose stuff like that, you set a full slab down and that rubber can push up on top of the slat like that. And that's gonna drastically affect miter cuts and any precision with the machine.
So now for the height sensor, Josh is gonna walk us through how we would set up checking the tops of the rubber strips or rubber slats and using the height sensor to do that. Josh?
Yeah, Joe, so with the Sawjet, all you have to do is go to your setup screen and then setup again, and you'll click test height sensor. So right here, we'll just do a test and we'll acknowledge yes to it, and we'll watch the machine to make sure it comes down nice and centered on those rubber slats. If you need to, move over a little bit, whichever way, and then if you come back to the screen, you can see that our height sensor right next to our test tested at a positive 35 thou, which is within Park Industries tolerance. Now you can jump around, same scenario, every 1.5 to 2 feet is where you want to test. We're just going to do a couple inches here, so I'm just going to go to a maintain jog again, and you always want to make sure. I just found our best rubber slats on the table here, and we're going to just jog over to that. Always be on a nice, smooth, clean slat. And we'll go back to setup and hit test again. Acknowledge it. And making sure we're coming down nice and centered on them slats. You can see here we came at a positive 29 thou. So we only have about a 6 thou difference there from the last one. We'll go through one more here. Move another 2 feet down and we'll do another test here. Now that one came back as a positive 21 thou here, you can see. So if we were getting above that 64 thou plus or minus, then we would want to make our adjustments to our slat holders, whether it be the entire bar or just the bar that pushes up each individual slat there.
Another thing you might find, Josh, is that that rubber strip might just be scarred up to a point you're never going to find a nice flat spot on it. So might be time to replace. As you can see, our table's in tougher shape. So if we were doing a lot of miters that we really wanted them dialed in looking good, it would be time to start swapping out rubber strips at least for new ones.
That's correct, Joe. And I think this is our training center machine, and I believe they have that on their schedule to do a tank clean and replace slats and the rubbers also here in the next week.
Very good. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Josh. Thank you, Facebook users here, for watching our tip of the week. Again, use the comment section. Let us know if there's anything you would like to see. We want to do the videos you're looking for. We appreciate you watching, and if you have any questions, absolutely reach out to Park Industries. We got friendly people like Josh here just ready to help you through any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.